You really are that dumb. My daughter Aisha's voice cut through the phone like a sharp knife, stopping me dead in the middle of the concourse at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. There was no greeting. No "Hey, Mama," just that brutal question that sucked all the air from my lungs as my suitcase rolled next to me and people pushed past. "What did you say?" I managed to articulate, my heart leaping into my throat. Aisha had never spoken to me like that. Never. In her 42 years of life, my daughter had never addressed me with that tone of rage mixed with desperation. "What you heard, Mama? You're too dumb to see what's going on." Her breathing was ragged, like she'd been running or crying or both. The background noise suggested she was in a car, driving fast. "Tell me you didn't get on that plane yet. Please, tell me you're still on the ground." My legs trembled. I stopped next to a column, leaning against the cold concrete as I tried to process what was happening. All around me, the airport was a chaos of rolling luggage, incomprehensible announcements over the loudspeakers, and the pungent smell of freshly brewed coffee mixed with expensive cologne. "I'm heading to the gate," I replied, looking toward the end of the hall where the illuminated sign with the number 16 was visible. "I have 5 minutes left before they close. Aisha, what the hell is going on? Did Tasha buy that ticket?" The question shot out like a bullet. Tasha Reynolds, my daughter-in-law, my son Jamal's perfect wife, the woman who for 8 years had sent me photos of my grandkids, handwritten birthday cards, and "We miss you so much, Mama Jones" messages. The one who had insisted on buying me this plane ticket as a gift, saying it was time I visited them in Seattle after so long. "Yeah, she bought it," I replied, not understanding where all this was going. She was so generous. She said we hadn't seen each other in ages. "Then return it." Aisha's voice cut off my words like a guillotine. "Return that ticket and get back home right now, immediately. Mama, don't get on that damn plane." The world stopped. The fluorescent lights of the airport flickered over my head, or maybe it was just my vision clouding. "Jamal, is he okay?" The question came out instinctively, mother's terror etched into every syllable. "Did something happen to my son? Aisha, you're scaring me." "Jamal is alive, if that's what you're asking." There was a pause, heavy with something dark, something I couldn't identify. "But no, Mama, your son is not okay, and neither will you be if you get on that plane. There's a surprise waiting for you, a devastating surprise that's going to destroy everything you thought you knew about your family." I felt my knees almost buckle. My suitcase slipped from my hand and fell sideways with a dull thud I barely registered. An elderly woman passing by stopped and asked if I was all right, but I could barely focus my gaze. "I don't understand anything you're saying," I whispered, lifting a trembling hand to my forehead. "Aisha, please, explain." "I can't explain over the phone. It's too serious, too complicated." Her voice broke slightly. "I just need you to trust me like never before. That ticket Tasha bought you isn't a gift, Mama. It's a trap. A perfectly designed trap to get you out of Atlanta while they do something irreversible." "They," I repeated like an idiot, unable to process anything. "Who are they? What are you talking about?" "Tasha, your daughter-in-law. The one who smiles at you on video calls, the one who sends you pictures of the kids every Sunday, the one who convinced Jamal it was time for you to spend a long visit with them in Seattle." Aisha paused, and I heard the sound of an angry car horn on the other end of the line. "Brenda called me an hour ago, Mama, and what she told me, what she's seeing right now. I need you to be sitting down when I tell you." Brenda. My best friend of 30 years, the only person besides my children who had a copy of my house keys. "What does Brenda have to do with this?" My voice came out as a croak. Tears began to sting my eyes, completely out of my control. "She's in your house right now." Every word from Aisha fell like a stone in still water, creating ripples of terror that spread through my entire body. She saw something that shouldn't be happening. And when I tell you, Mama, when you understand what your darling daughter-in-law has been planning while you were smiling in those family photos, you're going to wish you had never trusted her. My hand clenched the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. "Tell me now. Tell me what's happening at my house. What did Brenda see?" "No." The response was sharp. "If I tell you now, you'll collapse right there in the airport. I need you to come back. I need you to catch a taxi and come home. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 2 hours, maximum. And when we're together, when I can hold you and support you while I tell you everything, then you'll understand the magnitude of what's happening." I looked toward the boarding gate. The line had almost completely vanished. A flight attendant in a coral-colored uniform was making the final call over the microphone. My son Jamal would be waiting for me on the other side. My grandchildren would have signs with my name. Tasha would have prepared my room with fresh linens and flowers, just as she had promised me in a text message 2 days prior. "Mama, are you still there?" The urgency in Aisha's voice jolted me. "I need an answer now. Are you getting on that plane or are you going to trust me?" I closed my eyes. My mind was a chaos of unanswered questions. What could be so serious? What devastating surprise could be waiting for me? For 67 years, I had been a woman who trusted her family, who believed in the unconditional love between mother and son. But something in Aisha's tone, something in the way she pronounced Tasha's name with so much venom, told me that my world was about to explode into 1,000 pieces. "I'm not getting on," I finally said, and my voice sounded strangely firm, considering I was falling apart inside. "I'm coming back." Aisha's sigh was audible, even over all the airport noise. "Thank goodness. Get a taxi right now. Don't talk to anyone. Don't call Jamal. Don't answer Tasha if she texts you asking why you didn't board." Her voice dropped to a whisper, heavy with warning. "And prepare yourself, Mama, because what you're about to discover in the next few hours is going to change absolutely everything you thought you knew about the people you trusted the most." The call ended. I stood there with the phone in my hand, watching the flight attendant definitively close the boarding gate. The plane that would have taken me to hug my son would take off without me. And as I dragged my suitcase back toward the exit, my legs trembling and my heart pounding like a war drum, one question repeated over and over in my mind like a broken record. What the hell did Brenda see in my house? The trip back home was the longest torture of my life. Every red light seemed to last an eternity. Every minute that passed was another minute without answers, another minute with my imagination creating increasingly terrible scenarios. The taxi driver tried to make conversation a couple of times, asking about my trip, commenting on the traffic, but I could barely articulate monosyllables. My mind was completely consumed by Aisha's last words. A devastating surprise. What could that mean? I looked out the taxi window, watching the familiar streets of Atlanta pass by without really seeing them. The stores where I had shopped for years, the park where I used to take my kids when they were small, the donut shop where my late husband, Mario, bought pastries every Sunday. Everything looked the same, but I knew that nothing would ever be the same after today. I could feel it in my bones, in every fiber of my being. Something fundamental had broken, and I didn't even know what it was yet. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Tasha. "Dearest Mama Jones, are you on the plane yet? Jamal and the kids are thrilled waiting for you. I got your room ready with a view of the garden just like I promised. See you soon." 3 pink heart emojis at the end of the message. I read it twice, trying to find some sign of falsehood, some clue that it was all a lie. But there was nothing. Just the usual sweetness, the affectionate tone she had used with me for 8 years. I didn't respond. Aisha had warned me not to. I locked the phone and put it in my purse with trembling hands. How was it possible that someone could write messages so full of affection while planning something devastating? What kind of person does that? The image I had of Tasha began to crack like an old mirror, showing fissures I had never noticed before. When the taxi finally turned onto my street, I felt my heart jump out of my chest. There were 2 cars parked in front of my house. One was Brenda's, the other I didn't recognize, a silver sedan with Georgia plates. The lights in my living room were on, even though it was only 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The front door was ajar, and there, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed and an expression I had never seen on her face, was my friend Brenda. I paid the taxi driver with wrinkled bills, not even waiting for the change. I got out of the car on legs that barely supported me and dragged my suitcase up the stone path that Mario had laid 20 years ago. Brenda came down the steps and walked straight toward me. Her face was distraught. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. And when she hugged me, she did it with desperate force, as if she were trying to shield me from something invisible. "Vivian," she whispered against my shoulder. "Thank goodness Aisha stopped you in time." She pulled away and took me by the shoulders, looking me straight in the eyes. "Are you ready for this? Because once you step inside that house, once you see what I saw, there's no turning back." "Tell me what's happening," I demanded, though my voice came out choked. "Tell me what you saw. Tell me why my daughter called me and said I was dumb. Tell me what Tasha has to do with all this." Brenda looked toward the house and then back at me. "There's someone inside you need to meet. Someone who has information that... Vivian, this goes beyond what you can imagine. It's about money, a lot of money. It's about lies that have been building for years. It's about your son being manipulated by a woman who turns out to be completely different from what we all believed." I felt bile rise in my throat. "Who is inside?" "A man named Marcus Chen. He's a private investigator." Brenda lowered her voice, although there was no one else on the street. "I hired him 3 weeks ago when I started suspecting something weird was going on. When Tasha called so persistently for you to come visit them, when your son suddenly started asking about documents for your house, about property titles. The pieces didn't fit. Vivian, I had to protect you." 3 weeks, I repeated, stunned. "You've been investigating my family for 3 weeks without telling me?" "Because I wasn't sure." Brenda's eyes filled with tears. "Because I prayed I was wrong. Because the idea that your daughter-in-law, the mother of your grandchildren, the woman Jamal chose, could be capable of what we discovered. Vivian, I wanted to be wrong with every fiber of my being." "But you weren't," I stated, not as a question, but as a confirmation that came from the depths of my soul. Brenda shook her head slowly. "No, I wasn't wrong, and it's worse than I first imagined. Much worse." We walked toward the house in silence. Every step felt like walking toward my own execution. The front door creaked when we opened it fully. My living room, the space where I had celebrated birthdays, Christmases, and family gatherings for decades, looked strangely different under the afternoon light. Everything was in its place, but there was a tension in the air, a sense that something invisible had been violated. A man about 50 years old was sitting on my olive green sofa. He had salt and pepper hair, wore a dark suit, and had an open laptop and several manila folders full of documents on the coffee table in front of him. He stood up when I entered and extended his hand with a serious expression. "Ms. Jones, I'm Marcus Chen, private investigator. I'm very sorry we have to meet under these circumstances." His handshake was firm, but not aggressive. His eyes were penetrating, the kind that had likely seen too many ugly things in his profession. "Your friend Brenda hired me to investigate certain irregularities related to your property and your finances. What I found, ma'am, you need to sit down." "I prefer to stand," I said, though my legs were protesting. "Tell me what you found. Tell me why my daughter called me terrified. Tell me what the hell is going on with my family." Marcus exchanged a look with Brenda. She nodded slightly. He sighed deeply and opened one of the folders. "Approximately 6 months ago, a series of legal proceedings related to this property were initiated. Documents for a change of deed, requests for a commercial appraisal, inquiries with real estate agencies about the market value of this house." "That's impossible," I interrupted. "I haven't started any proceedings. This house has been in my name since my husband died 12 years ago. No one can do anything without my authorization." "Exactly." Marcus took a document from the folder and held it out to me. "No one can do anything without your authorization, unless they have a power of attorney giving that authorization to someone else." I looked at the paper. It was a copy of a legal document full of seals and signatures, and there, at the bottom, was my name, my signature, or something that looked very much like it. I never signed this, I whispered, feeling the floor move beneath my feet. I would never give power over my house to anyone. I know, Marcus said softly, because that signature is forged, though quite well done, I must admit. They probably took samples of your signature from other documents, letters, cards, photos of checks, and replicated it digitally. The world went blurry. Brenda took my arm and guided me to the sofa. I sank onto the cushions I had bought 5 years ago during a special sale. Who? I managed to articulate. Who forged my signature? Marcus pulled out more documents, photographs, and printed emails. The power of attorney was presented by your son, Jamal, at an attorney's office in Washington State, where he resides. But the prior steps, the consultations, the contacts with potential buyers, all those emails were sent from an account belonging to Tasha Reynolds, your daughter-in-law. Tasha's name floated in the air like invisible poison. I stared at the documents, unable to truly focus on the letters, the signatures, the official seals that proved my daughter-in-law had been planning this for months, maybe years. No, I whispered, shaking my head. There must be a mistake. Tasha wouldn't do something like that. She loves Jamal. She loves her children. She's always been respectful toward me. Vivian, Brenda's voice cracked. Look at me. I looked up at my friend. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. I wanted to believe that too. That's why I hired Marcus, to prove to myself that I was crazy, that my suspicions were unfounded. But the more he investigated, the more garbage came to light. Marcus carefully closed his laptop and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Ms. Jones, has your son asked you for money in the last 2 years? Loans, investments in his business, help for the kids' medical expenses, or repairs to their house? I thought quickly. Yes, I admitted slowly. 1.5 years ago, he asked me for $1,000 to expand his online logistics business. He said it was a unique opportunity. And 8 months ago, he asked for another $10,000 for my oldest grandson, Elijah's appendicitis surgery. He said their insurance didn't cover everything. Did he pay you back that money? Marcus asked, though I already knew the answer from his expression. No, but I didn't expect him to. He's my son. He's my grandson. I didn't lend him that money expecting to recover it. My voice sounded defensive, even to my own ears. Marcus nodded understandingly, but his eyes remained hard. Your son's business is perfectly fine, ma'am. In fact, tax returns from the last 3 years show constant profits, and the child never had appendicitis surgery. I called the hospital where he was supposedly operated on. There's no record of any patient with that name on those dates. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. The air escaped my lungs in a gasping choke. That can't be true. I saw the photos of the boy in the hospital. Tasha sent me photos by text. He was hooked up to IVs. He had bandages. Photos that can be taken at any time in any hospital during any routine medical visit. Marcus slid his phone toward me, showing me a screen full of images. I hired an investigator in Seattle where they live. We followed your daughter-in-law for 2 weeks. And what we discovered, ma'am, what we discovered perfectly explains where your money went. The photos began scrolling before my eyes. Tasha entering expensive restaurants. Tasha carrying bags from luxury stores with logos I recognized from fashion magazines. Tasha leaving an exclusive spa. And then, the photos that made me hold my breath. Tasha hugging a man who was definitely not my son. A younger man with dark, slicked-back hair, wearing an elegant suit. The photos showed kisses, intertwined hands, and them entering a hotel together. Who is that man? I asked, my voice hollow, feeling something inside me crystallize into ice. His name is Derek Shaw. He's an accountant working as an independent financial advisor. Marcus retrieved his phone. And he is also your daughter-in-law's personal accountant. He manages bank accounts that your son Jamal is unaware of, accounts where Tasha has been depositing money that, according to our investigations, comes from multiple sources, including the $25,000 you lent your son. The room began to spin. Brenda held my hand, squeezing it tightly. Breathe, girl. Breathe deep. My son, I whispered. Does Jamal know anything about this? Does he know about that man? Does he know what Tasha is doing?" Marcus shook his head. "According to all the evidence we gathered, your son is completely in the dark. Tasha has constructed a very elaborate double life. With Jamal, she's the perfect wife, the dedicated mother, the affectionate daughter-in-law who buys plane tickets for you to visit. But she has another parallel world, another man, other bank accounts, and a very specific plan." "What plan?" My voice sounded like tattered paper. Brenda was the one who answered, "Get you out of Atlanta. Make you sell this house, which is worth approximately $350,000, according to the most recent appraisal. Convince you to move in with them permanently in Seattle, and once you are there, isolated, without close friends, without your support network, get you to sign documents transferring your assets. And if I refused?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "The fake documents were already prepared." Marcus pointed to the folders on the table, "with your forged signature, with bought witnesses. Plan B was simply to proceed without your real consent, counting on the fact that by the time you realized and wanted to do something about it, you'd already be in another state, without easy access to local lawyers, without knowledge of the legal system here." I stood up abruptly, staggering. I walked to the window that overlooked the backyard, the yard where Mario had planted rose bushes that still bloomed every spring, where my children had played as kids, where I had built an entire life based on trust, on family love, on the belief that blood was stronger than anything. "How long?" I asked without turning around. "How long has Tasha been planning this?" "According to the records we could trace, at least 3 years. Marcus's voice was clinical, professional, but I could detect a nuance of compassion. "It started subtly, questions about your health, comments about how lonely you must feel, suggestions that it would be better for you to be close to family, all designed to plant the seed of the idea." 3 years. 3 years of perfectly executed lies, 3 years of affectionate text messages, photos of my grandchildren, video calls where Tasha smiled and called me Mama Jones with such affection. All fake, all calculated. "I need to talk to my son," I said suddenly, turning toward them. "I need to call Jamal right now and tell him his wife is a liar, a manipulator, a—" "Not yet." Marcus stood up quickly. "If you call your son now, Tasha will find out immediately, and all the evidence we've gathered could disappear. She is smart, Ms. Jones, very smart. She's maintained this charade for years without anyone suspecting a thing. If she feels discovered, she'll move the money, destroy documents, and manipulate Jamal into believing that you are senile or paranoid." "Then what am I supposed to do?" I exploded, feeling the rage bubble in my chest. "Sit here, knowing that woman is sleeping next to my son, that she's raising my grandchildren, that she's probably already filling their heads with lies about me." Brenda came closer and took both my hands. "That's why Aisha is on her way. We need a plan that protects Jamal, that protects the children, that protects you and your assets. But it has to be strategic. It has to be perfect." "Aisha knows all this?" I asked, recalling the airport call. "I told her a part of it this morning when I saw the supposed movers circling your house." Brenda squeezed my hands. "I called Aisha immediately. She called those men, pretending to be you, and dismissed them, saying there was a mistake. Then she asked me to contact Marcus immediately so he could come with all the evidence, and she called you to stop you before you fell into the trap." The front door burst open. The 3 of us turned around, startled. It was Aisha. My daughter walked in like a hurricane, her hair windblown and her eyes shining with a mix of fury and determination I had never seen in her. She saw me standing by the window and ran toward me, wrapping me in a hug so tight it almost took my breath away. "Mama," she whispered against my neck, I'm sorry I talked to you like that on the phone, but I had to make sure you didn't get on that plane. I had to protect you." "I know, baby, I know." I stroked her hair like I used to when she was a little girl. "What are we going to do? How are we going to fix this?" Aisha pulled away and looked at me with eyes full of tears, but also something else, something fierce, something relentless. We're going to destroy her, Mama. We're going to expose every lie, every deception, every bit of wickedness that woman has committed, and we're going to save Jamal from her clutches, even if we have to drag him kicking and screaming back to reality. We sat around the dining room table, the same table where we had celebrated so many family dinners, so many Christmases, so many happy moments that now felt contaminated by betrayal. Marcus unfolded more documents in front of us, as if he were putting together a macabre jigsaw puzzle. Each piece revealed another layer of deception, another carefully constructed lie. "You need to understand something fundamental," Marcus began, pointing to a series of bank statements. "Tasha isn't a common opportunist. This isn't simply a greedy woman who saw a chance to steal some money. This is a systematic, meticulously organized plan that she has been executing with surgical precision for years." Aisha took one of the papers, studying it with a frown. "These bank movements, there are regular transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands. $1,000 here, $10,000 there. Never amounts large enough to arouse suspicion." "Exactly." Marcus nodded in agreement. "For the last 3 years, Tasha has been systematically diverting money, small amounts from your son's business that he attributes to normal operating expenses, the money Ms. Jones lent. We even discovered that she cashed a life insurance policy from Jamal's mother that had supposedly gotten lost in the paperwork after her death 6 years ago. $200,000 that Jamal never even knew existed." I felt the blood run cold in my veins. Jamal's mother, Dolores, had been my best friend before I even knew Brenda. Dolores died of cancer when Jamal was barely 21. She made me promise I would look out for my son, that I would make sure he was okay. Tears started rolling down my cheeks. And now I discover that the woman he chose as his wife has been stealing the money his own mother left him. It's like desecrating her grave. Brenda handed me a tissue. Her own eyes were glassy. "How much money has she accumulated in total?" she asked Marcus. "Approximately $420,000 in the Cayman Islands account." The figure dropped onto the table like a bomb. "And that's not counting the value of this house, which was the grand prize of the plan. If she had managed to sell this property and transfer the money to accounts Tasha controlled, we'd be talking about nearly $800,000. "My God," I whispered. "All that money, is it just hers? Is Derek, that man you saw her with, involved?" "Derek Shaw is more than her lover," Marcus said, pulling out more photographs. "He's her accomplice. He's the one managing the offshore accounts, the one designing the financial movements to make them difficult to trace. They probably met 4 or 5 years ago, before all this started, and together they've been building their escape nest." Aisha slammed her fist on the table, making the papers jump. "That manipulative! She's been living a complete lie while my brother worked day and night to support his family, while Mama deprived herself of things just to send them money when they needed it, while all of us treated her like family. The question now," Marcus said calmly, "is what you want to do with this information. I have enough evidence to press criminal charges: fraud, forgery of documents, theft. Tasha and Derek could face several years in prison." "I want her to rot in jail," I snapped before I could contain myself. The rage that had been growing in my chest exploded like a volcano. "I want her to pay for every lie, for every tear my son is going to shed when he finds out the truth, for every dollar she stole, not just from me, but from him." "Mama," Aisha placed her hand on mine. "Think about the children, your grandchildren. If we put Tasha in jail, they'll grow up knowing their mother is a criminal. Is that what you want for them?" Her words stopped me dead in my tracks. "My grandchildren, Elijah, who was 7, and Sophia, who was 5, 2 innocent creatures who weren't to blame for having a monstrous mother." "So what are you suggesting? That we let her get away with it?" "No." Aisha's voice was ice cold. "I suggest we destroy her in a way that leaves her with nothing but protects those kids. That Jamal has the opportunity to divorce her and get full custody. That you recover your money and Grandma Dolores's money. That Tasha ends up exactly where she should be, alone, ruined, and exposed to everyone who ever believed in her. Marcus observed us with a thoughtful expression. That would require a different approach, more strategic, slower, but potentially more devastating for her. What kind of approach? Brenda asked, leaning forward. First, we need Jamal to see the truth with his own eyes. Marcus began outlining a plan with hand gestures. We can't just call him and tell him his wife is cheating on him. He is emotionally invested in that woman. He has 2 children with her. His instinct will be to defend her, to think we're wrong, or that we have some hidden agenda. Jamal has always been stubborn, I admitted, my voice breaking. Since he was a kid, once he makes a decision, it's almost impossible to make him change his mind. And he loves Tasha, or at least he loves the version of Tasha she has shown him. That's why we need to bring him here, Aisha said suddenly, her eyes shining with determination. To Atlanta. We need to get him out of his controlled environment where Tasha can manipulate every situation. Bring him to neutral ground where we can show him the evidence without her whispering lies in his ear. And how do you propose we do that? I asked. If I call him saying I urgently need to see him, Tasha will smell a rat. She'll want to come with him. Brenda raised a finger, her eyes also lighting up with an idea. What if the pretext isn't you? What if it's something related to the business or the property that they were supposedly going to sell? Marcus nodded slowly, a cunning smile forming on his lips. That could work. We could create a situation where Jamal has to come personally to sign documents related to the supposed sale of this house, documents that, we'll tell him, require his physical presence because they involve large international money transfers. But won't Tasha suspect? I insisted. She's the one who has been orchestrating all this. She'll know if something doesn't add up. That's where the delicious part of the plan comes in. Aisha's eyes gleamed with something almost fierce. We'll make her believe she won, that her plan worked. Mama, you'll have to call Jamal. You'll have to tell him that after a lot of thought, you've decided they're right, that you want to sell the house and move in with them permanently, that you're ready to sign everything. My stomach churned at the thought of lying to my son, even for a good cause. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can pretend everything is fine when I know what that woman has done to him. You have to, Mama. Aisha took my hands in hers. It's the only way to protect him. If Tasha suspects even for a second that we've found out, she'll move all the money, destroy evidence, and convince Jamal that we're the villains. We've seen how she operates. She is brilliant in her wickedness. We can't give her any advantage. Marcus continued developing the plan. Once Jamal is here, we'll organize a meeting. In the presence of an attorney, we will show him all the evidence. The bank statements, the photographs of Tasha with Derek, the forged documents, everything. And we will give him the option of handling this privately, through divorce and restitution of the money, or publicly, with criminal charges. And what if he doesn't believe us? The question came out as a terrified whisper. What if he is so blinded by her that he refuses to see the truth even when it's right in front of his eyes? Then we will have done everything possible. Brenda's voice was soft but firm. But at least he will have the information. At least he will know. And when Tasha inevitably makes another mistake, because she will, Jamal will remember this conversation. He will remember that we tried to warn him. I looked at the faces around the table, my daughter with fierce determination in every line of her expression. My best friend, who had risked our friendship by investigating without telling me just to protect me. The investigator, a stranger who had become an unexpected ally. And I thought about Jamal, my son, the boy I had carried in my arms, whose tears I had dried, whose dreams I had nurtured. All right, I finally said, feeling something inside me harden. Let's do it. I'll call Jamal tomorrow. I'll tell him exactly what Tasha wants to hear, and when he's here, we'll open his eyes, even if it hurts, even if it shatters his heart. Because that's what mothers do. They protect their children, even when those children are grown and don't want to be protected. The night was the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tasha's face smiling at me on video calls. I saw my grandchildren playing happily. I saw Jamal hugging his wife, unaware that she was slowly destroying him. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I gave up. I got up and made coffee. My hands trembled as I held the cup, watching the sunrise through the kitchen window. Aisha had slept in her old room. Brenda insisted on staying too, sleeping on the sofa. When they came down around 7, the three of us sat in silence, drinking coffee as if it were the only thing keeping us anchored to reality. "Ready?" Aisha finally asked, pointing to my phone on the table. "I'll never be ready to lie to my son," I replied hoarsely, "but I'll do it anyway." I dialed Jamal's number with trembling fingers. It was 8 o'clock in the morning here, which meant it was 6 o'clock in the afternoon there. Perfect timing. He'd be finishing his workday, probably on his way home. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest. "Mama?" Jamal's voice sounded confused. "Are you okay? Tasha told me you didn't board the plane yesterday. We've been worried sick. What happened?" I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let the lie flow. "My love, I'm so sorry. I felt sick at the airport, dizzy, nauseous. I thought it was just travel nerves, but I decided not to risk it. You know how I am, always worried about my health." I forced a chuckle that sounded fake even to my own ears. "Did you go to the doctor?" His genuine concern broke my heart. "Mama, you're 67 years old. You can't ignore symptoms like that." I went. He says it was just a drop in blood pressure, nothing serious." The lie came easier than I thought it would. "But son, I called for another reason. I've been thinking a lot about what you and Tasha have been telling me about moving in with you, about selling the house." There was a pause. I could hear the sound of traffic on the other end of the line. "Yes?" His voice sounded cautious, hopeful. "I think you're right." The words burned my throat. "This house is too big for me alone. The memories are sometimes more of a burden than a blessing, and I miss my grandchildren terribly. I want to see them grow up. I want to be close to you." I paused, letting the hook sink in. "I'm ready to sell, Jamal. I'm ready to start a new stage of my life with you all." My son's cry of joy pierced me like a knife. "Seriously, Mama? Are you serious? Tasha, come here. Mama said yes." I heard hurried footsteps, excited voices on the other end. Then Tasha's voice, sweet as poisoned honey, came over the speaker. "Mama Jones, what wonderful news. We're so happy. The children are going to be thrilled. You'll see what a great time we'll have together. This is the best decision you could have made." Her tone was perfect, warm, genuine, full of affection. If I didn't know the truth, I would have believed every word. "Thank you, Tasha." I forced myself to sound excited. "But there's one thing I need Jamal to do. He has to come to Atlanta to sign some documents. The closing attorney says that because of the international transfer of funds, he needs his signature in person, something about tax laws and notarial validation." "Can't you send the documents by mail?" Jamal asked, and I could detect a hint of suspicion in his voice. My son had always been smart, too smart sometimes. "The attorney insists it has to be in person," I replied quickly, following the script Marcus had prepared for me. "Besides, son, it would be good for you to see the house one last time, to decide what furniture you want to keep, what objects have sentimental value for you. I don't want to sell things that you'll miss later." There was a silence. I heard him speaking softly with Tasha, words I couldn't distinguish. Finally, he returned to the phone. "All right, Mama, I can fly in this weekend. It's only 2 days. Tasha will stay with the kids because they have school and activities." "Perfect," I said, feeling a mixture of relief and terror. "I'll text you the details. The attorney can meet us Saturday morning. Does that work for you?" "That sounds perfect, Mama. Thank you. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for letting us take care of you." The genuine emotion in his voice almost made me break. "I love you. See you in a few days. I love you too, son." Tears ran freely down my cheeks, more than you will ever understand. I hung up the phone and collapsed onto the table, sobbing uncontrollably. Aisha hugged me from behind, her own body trembling. "You did great, Mama. You did perfect." "I lied," I moaned through tears. "I lied to my son. I hurt his happiness, and I know that in a few days I'm going to shatter his world." Brenda knelt in front of me, taking my face in her hands. "No, Vivian, you're not going to shatter his world. Tasha already did. You're just going to show him the truth. And yes, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt like hell, but it's the only way to save him." The next 3 days were torture. I couldn't stop acting like everything was normal. I answered Tasha's texts with false enthusiasm. I talked to Jamal about his trip preparations. Meanwhile, Marcus worked with an attorney named Clark Stevens, preparing all the documentation, organizing every detail of the confrontation that was coming. Clark came to the house Thursday afternoon. He was a man in his mid-50s, completely gray hair, sharp eyes behind black-rimmed glasses, a specialist in family law and financial fraud. "Ms. Jones," he greeted me with a firm handshake. "Marcus has brought me up to speed on the situation. I want you to know that we have a solid case, very solid." We sat around the dining room table again. Clark laid out a printed presentation, page after page of evidence organized chronologically. "This is the timeline of your daughter-in-law's operation," he explained. "It began subtly about 4 years ago. Small comments about your well-being, about loneliness, about the importance of family. Then it escalated to more direct suggestions about moving in with them. 3 years ago, the suspicious money transfers began." He continued, pointing to bank statements marked with yellow highlighter. "Always amounts that could be justified as normal expenses, a new refrigerator, car repairs, school uniforms, but when you add it all up over 3 years, we're talking about more than $100,000 just in these small diversions." "And Dolores's insurance?" I asked, my voice trembling as I mentioned my late friend. "That was the masterstroke." Clark pulled out documents from the insurance company. Tasha discovered the existence of that policy 2 years after marrying Jamal. Instead of informing her husband, she filed the claim herself, forging documents that named her as the alternate beneficiary. The insurance company paid out $200,000 without asking too many questions because everything appeared to be in order. Aisha slammed the table again, a gesture that was becoming habitual. "She's a professional thief. She's turned systematic theft into an art." "And now we come to the crown jewel," Clark said, pulling out the documents related to my house. The attempt to seize this property would have been her golden retirement. With the accumulated money plus the value of this house, she and her lover Derek would have enough to disappear. They probably already have fake passports, accounts prepared in some tax haven, maybe even a property purchased under fictitious names. "What will happen on Saturday?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Clark leaned back in his chair, folding his hands in front of him. "On Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, Jamal will arrive here believing he's going to sign sales documents. Instead, he'll find you, Aisha, me, Marcus, and all this evidence laid out in front of him. We will give him 30 minutes to review everything, to absorb the magnitude of the betrayal, and then we will present him with 2 options." "What options?" Brenda leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Clark. "Option 1. We handle this privately. Jamal divorces Tasha. He obtains full custody of the children based on evidence of fraud and adultery. Tasha returns all the stolen money, signs documents renouncing any claim to Ms. Jones's property, and disappears from their lives. In exchange, we do not press criminal charges." "And option 2?" Aisha asked. "Option 2. We press full criminal charges against Tasha and Derek: fraud, forgery of documents, identity theft, embezzlement. Both face between 5 and 15 years in prison. But this means a public trial, media scandal, and the children growing up with the stigma of having a mother in prison." The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Finally I spoke, my voice firmer than I felt. "I want option 1. But only if Tasha accepts all the terms. If she refuses, if she tries to manipulate Jamal, If she tries to turn the situation against him, then we go with option 2, no mercy. Clark nodded in approval. That's the correct strategy. We'll give her an out, but it will be an exit that leaves her with nothing. No money, no family, no reputation. That will be her true prison. Friday night, I couldn't eat a thing. My stomach was an impossible knot. Aisha tried to force me to have at least a little soup, but every spoonful felt like swallowing glass. Jamal would arrive tomorrow at noon. In less than 24 hours, the whole truth would burst out like an infected wound finally being drained. Brenda stayed with me again. Aisha, too. The three of us sat in the living room watching a movie that none of us were really seeing. Aisha's phone rang around 9 o'clock at night. It was Marcus. "We have movement," his voice said over the speaker. "Tasha just made a large transfer. From the Cayman Islands account to another account we hadn't identified before, in Switzerland." "What does that mean?" I asked, feeling panic rise in my throat. "It means she's nervous," Marcus replied. "Maybe she doesn't suspect anything specific, but the fact that Jamal is traveling alone, that you suddenly agreed to sell, something is putting her on alert. She's moving money as a precaution. It's what any smart criminal would do before a major operation." "Can you trace that Swiss account?" Aisha asked, her jaw tense. "I'm already doing it. I have contacts. It will take a few hours, but I'll find it." There was a pause. "Ms. Jones, it is vital that you remain calm tomorrow. If Tasha calls, if Jamal mentions anything strange, you have to act completely normal. A single slip, and she could convince Jamal not to come." "I understand," I whispered, though I wasn't sure I understood anything, really. Everything felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The call ended. The three of us fell silent again. Finally, Brenda spoke. "Vivian, have you thought about what you're going to say to Jamal? I know Clark has his legal presentation ready, but you're his mother. Your words will carry the most weight." I hadn't thought about it. I had been so consumed by the plan, by the logistics, by maintaining the lie, that I hadn't considered what words I would use when I looked my son in the eyes and destroyed his reality. "I don't know," I admitted. "How do you tell your son that the woman he loves, the mother of his children, is a complete fraud?" "With the truth," Aisha said firmly. "Simple and direct, without sugarcoating anything. Jamal is an adult. He deserves to know exactly who the person he married is." That night, lying in bed, I wrote a letter I would never send. I just needed to put my thoughts on paper. "Jamal, my love, I'm sorry for what you are about to discover. I'm sorry that your heart is going to break into 1,000 pieces. I'm sorry that your children have to grow up knowing this truth about their mother, but I do not regret having saved you from continuing to be deceived. A mother's love sometimes means causing pain to prevent greater pain, and that's what I'm doing today. I love you. I will always love you, even if you hate me for this." Sunday dawned gray. Heavy clouds covered the sky like an omen. Tasha would arrive at 11 o'clock. Clark appeared at 9 with more documents. Marcus brought recording equipment. "We need to record the confrontation," he explained, "just in case she tries to deny everything later or manipulate the narrative." At 11:15, a taxi stopped in front of the house. Tasha stepped out, perfect as always. Long, straight hair, impeccably styled. An elegant, but not ostentatious coral-colored dress, modest heels, a ready smile. She carried a small suitcase and her designer handbag that had probably cost more than I spent on clothes in 6 months. Jamal opened the door before she could ring the bell. "My love." Tasha lunged to hug Jamal, kissing him on the lips. He remained rigid, not responding. She drew back slightly, studying his face. "Are you okay? You look tired?" "Come in," Jamal said in a neutral voice. "We need to talk." Tasha walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She saw me in the living room, and her smile widened. "Mama Jones, so good to see you. Sorry for the rush of the trip, but you know how these legal things are." She approached to hug me, but I remained motionless, not responding. Her smile wavered. Is something happening? Clark emerged from the kitchen at that moment, in his impeccable suit and serious expression. Tasha looked at him, confused. Are you the closing attorney? I am an attorney, Clark replied. Clark Stevens. And no, there are no sales documents to sign, Ms. Reynolds. This is about something completely different. Tasha's face changed subtly. The smile vanished. Her eyes darted quickly between Jamal, Clark, and me. I don't understand, Jamal. What is going on? Sit down, my son said, pointing to the armchair. His voice was like ice. I prefer to stand until someone explains to me what the hell is going on here. Tasha's voice rose slightly, defensive. Marcus then emerged from the dining room carrying his laptop and the folders. Aisha came out behind him. Brenda appeared from the hallway. Tasha took a step back, her eyes widening. This is an ambush, she whispered. Jamal, what did you do? I didn't do anything, Jamal replied, his voice broken but firm. The question is, what did you do, Tasha? What have you been doing for years while I work to support our family? I don't know what you're talking about. Tasha raised her chin, adopting a defiant stance. This is ridiculous. I came here in good faith to help with some documents, and I walk into this. What is this? An intervention? Marcus placed his laptop on the table and turned it toward her. These are screenshots of 3 offshore bank accounts, Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Panama, all in your name. Total combined, $600,000. Can you explain where that money came from? The color drained from Tasha's face. That's private. You have no right to investigate my finances. We have every right when those finances involve stolen money, Clark intervened. Money diverted from your husband's business. Money defrauded from your mother-in-law. Money from Jamal's mother's life insurance that you fraudulently claimed. That's a lie, Tasha shouted, but her hands were trembling. All of this is an orchestrated lie. Vivian, you're behind this. You never liked me. You always wanted to separate me from your son. Don't use my name, I said, my voice ice cold. Don't you dare try to flip this and play the victim. I saw the photographs, Tasha. I saw you with Derek Shaw, entering hotels, kissing him, planning your future with the money you stole from my family. Tasha spun toward Jamal, tears starting to stream down her cheeks. My love, please, can I explain? Everything has an explanation. I know it looks bad, but... Elijah had appendicitis surgery. Jamal's question cut the air like a knife. Answer truthfully. Did my son have surgery? Tasha opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her eyes moved frantically, searching for an escape. It was a medical consultation. We thought it was appendicitis, but it turned out to be gas. I didn't want to worry you unnecessarily, so I simplified the story. You lied, Jamal said, his voice breaking. You asked my mother for $10,000 based on a lie. Where is that money, Tasha? Where is my mother's insurance money that you never told me existed? I was saving it, Tasha stammered. For the children's future, for their college education. I was going to tell you, but... Offshore accounts with your lover managing them. Aisha took a step forward, her voice filled with contempt. You think we're stupid? You have 2 options, Tasha, and I suggest you think very carefully before answering. Clark opened a folder and pulled out 2 sets of documents. Option 1. You sign a divorce agreement where you waive any claim to shared assets, return all the stolen money, and agree that Jamal has full custody of the children. You can have supervised visits. In exchange, we do not press criminal charges. And option 2? Tasha asked, her voice barely audible. Prison, Clark said simply. Fraud, forgery of documents, identity theft, between 5 and 15 years. Your children will grow up visiting you behind glass. You decide. Tasha collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. You can't take my children away from me. Jamal, please. I love them. I love Elijah and Sophia more than anything in the world. But you didn't love me, Jamal said, tears streaming down his face. And you didn't respect my mother. And you stole the legacy of my own dead mother. How can I believe you love our children when you've proven yourself capable of anything for money?" "I'm sorry," Tasha cried uncontrollably now. "I'm so sorry. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I can change. We can go to therapy. I can pay back the money. Please don't take my babies away from me." "You have 10 minutes to decide," Clark said, placing the documents in front of her along with a pen. "After that, we call the police, and this is handled the other way." Tasha took the papers with trembling hands, reading them between sobs. Finally, with a heartbreaking wail, she signed page after page, waiving everything: her marriage, her rights to the children, the money, any future claims. When she finished, Clark collected the documents. "The offshore accounts will be frozen, and the funds transferred back. You have 24 hours to pack your bags and leave the house you share with Jamal. An officer will accompany you to ensure you only take your personal belongings." Tasha stood up, staggering. She looked at Jamal one last time. "You're really going to do this to me after 8 years together? After 2 children?" "You did this to yourself," Jamal replied, his voice finally firm. "Every decision you made brought you here, not my family. You." Tasha walked out of the house without looking back. We heard the taxi drive away. The silence that remained was heavy but also liberating. Jamal collapsed onto the sofa, crying like he hadn't since he was a child. I hugged him, letting him release all the pain, all the betrayal, all the loss. "The children," he whispered finally. "How am I going to explain this to Elijah and Sophia?" "With the truth," I said softly. "Adapted for their age, but with the truth and with a lot of love. They're going to be okay, son, because they have you and they have us." 3 months later, all the money had been recovered. Jamal sold his house in Seattle and moved back to Atlanta with the children. They temporarily moved in with me while he found something smaller and more manageable. Elijah and Sophia cried for their mother at first, but with therapy and time, they began to heal. Tasha disappeared. We later learned she fled with Derek to somewhere in South America. The signed documents ensured she could never legally claim anything again. I never sold my house. This is where I am now, writing this, watching my grandchildren play in the garden their grandfather planted. Jamal is rebuilding his life. Aisha visits every weekend. Brenda is still my rock. And I learned that a mother's love isn't about stopping your children from hurting. It's about being there when the pain comes, protecting them even when it hurts, and telling the truth even if it shatters worlds, because, in the end, the truth is the only thing that truly sets us free. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.